This discussion is organized by DELNA, Transparency International, and also the US Embassy in Latvia. And we say thanks to the Embassy for support to organize this discussion. I am the Executive Director of DELNA. And before we start this discussion, some technical information. There will be simultaneous interpretation provided. We can watch this online meeting on Delna homepage, also Facebook, and also on the Delphi homepage. And it is possible to watch both in English and also in Latvian. Those who have connected to the Zoom and those who have registered before, you can choose it in the bottom right corner. You can press the interpretation button and choose the language you need. The questions will be asked it will be possible to ask questions by those who were registered and have connected to this conference. You can write those questions in the chat box, and then the moderator will ask them to the participants of the discussion. Also, the summary of this meeting will be available on Delna homepage next week. So let us start. Let us start the discussion. The title, the name of this discussion is Legislation on Lobbying in Latvia. And so our today's goal is to start and extend the discussion about the best international practice of this, and also how in Latvia we should organize and do this regulation on lobbying. We have invited international experts, we have invited the MPs and also experts from Latvia to discuss and share their opinion about this draft regulation in Latvia. Delna, the Transparency International Latvia's chapter, already for 20 years has been fighting corruption and standing for transparency. This is not an easy job. We have done quite a lot. We have reduced the possibilities of interest of conflict. We have also stood for the creation of the whistleblowing system. We have discussed money laundering problems and other topics. And the issues we have worked with have successfully resulted with legislation. We have also informed the public about possibilities to influence the processes in Latvia. And in all these activities, and also in development of legislation on lobbying, it is very important for us to do to create this legislation in order to promote and foster the fight against corruption, and also we have to remember that this is very important step. This is part of the democratic society. It ensures the political pluralism and also ensures that various groups of society have equal possibilities to contact the decision makers and express their opinion. The SAIM, the Parliament Working Group, have developed the basic principles, and they have started an active work drafting the law. And there are still active discussions on various topics, and we have to reach an agreement. That's why today we are asking to focus on the European Council GRECO group. Groups given recommendations for Latvia. So there is a certain order for the MPs how to form a relationship with lobbyists and third parties. So those parties who want to impact the process of decision making. So today we will start a discussion, and um, in the second part of the discussion, the experts and members of the parliament will discuss how Latvia is doing with development of this draft law. We will also listen to the comments from the international experts' recommendations, which Latvia have to take into account so that this regulation is in line with international standards and also achieves its goal that there are equal opportunities for the public to participate in protecting their interests and also communicate communicate with the decision makers. So I wish to all of us have a very successful afternoon and get a lot of new information and ideas. Like I said, there is active work in our parliament with development with this regulation, and also the commission in SAIM, Defense Internal Affairs and Corruption Prevention Committee was formed in 2019. Also, some months ago, there was a public discussion about the basic principles of this regulation. And now there is an active work drafting this text in SAIM. And that's why I give floor to the chair of the Defense Internal Affairs and Corruption Prevention Committee of the Parliament, Mr. Juris Rancāns. So the floor is yours. Yes, good day, dear participants. I am so happy to see all of you here in this discussion. First of all, I would like to express a thank you to DALNA, our NGO, for organizing this discussion and experts forum. Also, I would like to express thanks to all the participating experts and also the Embassy of the US, also His Excellency the Ambassador, that you found this opportunity to participate and support us in these endeavors, and also supporting our work on this regulation. Here it is called as legislation on representation of interests. In other places, it is called legislation on lobbying, but in any case, how it is called, we appreciate help you are giving to us. Also, I would like to express satisfaction that when we finish this work, Latvia will become the 8th EU member state where there is a comprehensive regulation on lobbying. As I said before, the COVID pandemics have slowed us a little bit down. Still, it hasn't reduced our political will to approve and adopt this regulation. And I hope it's going to be adopted in the nearest future, before the end of this Parliament. So right now we are working very actively. We are drafting this law in the group of Defense, Internal Affairs and Corruption Prevention Committee working group. And therefore, this kind of discussion with such a high level experts is very important and very valuable. And thanks to this discussion, we'll have a chance to get to know the experts, ideas and knowledge, also the best practice abroad, and also information which will be very useful for us. And also in the end, I would like to wish us a constructive and productive discussion which will result with sentences in our draft law. Thank you. Thank you very much to Mr. Rancāns for these supporting words. And now, in order to introduce the next speaker, it is very important to highlight that fight against corruption and transparency is important also internationally. It is very important for guaranteeing of democratic values in every country, and lack of transparency is a problem which is not only in Latvia, also it is familiar also in other countries. Therefore, this international cooperation and the support of our international friends is very important. And that's why we appreciate that we are not alone in this work, and that Latvia has very strong cooperation partners and friends. We have friends who have competencies and knowledge, and transfer of this knowledge is a very good support for us fighting against the corruption and having transparency. Therefore, I am very honored to give floor to His Excellency John Carwile, the ambassador of the United States to Latvia, who is a very strong supporter of these reforms against corruption.
Thank you. And thank you, Inese. Latvian, and welcome everyone. I'd like to thank Delna for convening this important event, and of course SAIMA for virtually opening its halls. It's an honor to be among such great company, and I'm delighted to help kick off this series of roundtables on transparency and ethics in government. The ideas and measures that you are discussing today are directly related to the broader issue of corruption, and also the need to fortify our democratic systems against the influence of corrupt actors who do not care about stability and the security of our alliance. It is also appropriate that this discussion is taking place in partnership with allies who share the same fight and the same interest in protecting what we've achieved as democratic nations. Inese just mentioned how this is not a fight or a challenge that's limited to Latvia or, a small number of countries. It's a fight for every country. And in the United States, we are not strangers to the threats that are posed by corruption. We have also faced our share of public integrity challenges that can undermine public trust. And without public trust in the democratic system, our systems of government can weaken and become more difficult to solve problems and deliver results for the people. But like all democracies, we have tried to learn from our mistakes and earn back public trust in government, in part through the kinds of measures that you all will be discussing here today, such as regulations to enhance transparency, accountability, and ethics in legislative and government processes. I am heartened to see so many lawmakers and members of civil society here together. Forums like this, whether in person or virtual, are vital to democratic processes, as they bring elected leaders closer to the people that they serve and ultimately lead to better policy results. Equally important are laws, regulations that enhance transparency, accountability, and ethics in legislative and government processes. Such laws help ensure that public officials work in the public interest, and they help uphold the values of trust and good faith that form the bedrock of our democratic societies. After all, values matter. Transparency and open government matter. How societies adopt laws is just as important as the laws that they adopt. I want to thank you for your commitment to upholding the democratic values that are at the foundation of the Republic of Latvia and of our alliance. And I want you to know that Latvia will continue to have a determined ally and a willing partner in the United States. Thank you, and I wish you a fruitful discussion during these roundtables.
Continuing our opening speeches, like I said in the beginning, there are GRECO recommendations for Latvia, and those recommendations is one of the main topics for today's discussion. And also, GRECO goal is to improve its member states' ability to fight against corruption. Latvia joined this group more than 20 years ago, and GRECO regularly assesses the progress of Latvia and also points to the recommendations which has to be put in life. And I would like to introduce Hanne Juncher, who is the Executive Secretary of GRECO.
GRECO, please. Hanne, the screen is yours.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, Riga. It's very nice to be with you today. I would like to thank, first of all, the United States Embassy in Riga for the initiative to hold this event and for inviting GRECO to contribute. We appreciate that very much. As you mentioned, Inese, GRECO is the Council of Europe's anti-corruption body, and our job is to ensure compliance with the Council of Europe's anti-corruption standards in our member states. And we currently have 50 member states. It's the 47 of the Council of Europe, plus the United States, Kazakhstan, and Belarus. GRECO was set up now 22 years ago, and since then, we've carried out some 200 country evaluation visits and adopted around 500 evaluation compliance reports. Constitutions have been changed, laws have been adopted or amended, different practices have been improved, institutions have been established or reformed, and we believe, we hope that the authorities in our member states are now better equipped to prevent and address corruption than they were before. But at the same time, and you will know that very well from your work in TI, public perception surveys suggest that corruption is still one of the biggest challenges that countries face today. Lack of trust in institutions and democratic processes is a particular source of worry. We heard that also from Ambassador Carwile just now. Parliament is at the heart of democracy. As representatives of the people, MPs are perfectly placed within the state to lead by example and to embody the standards expected of those who hold public office. MPs either exercise or they have direct access to political power and influence, and they should be vigilant when it comes to identifying their own vulnerabilities to corruption. This is especially so because individual or collective failures by parliamentarians to acknowledge conflicts of interest or to openly address misconduct in public office damages public confidence in the proper functioning of Parliament. GRECO's country-specific recommendations reiterate the fact that rules that support high standards of conduct are important tools and resources for MPs, provided, of course, that they are actively developed, kept up to date, reviewed, and monitored. Regularizing asset reporting, clarifying the restrictions on outside business activities, and ensuring that MPs are open about their interactions with anyone seeking to influence the legislative agendas or reforms. All of this helps MPs fulfill their public service mandate with integrity. It's important to clarify the substance of any rules that are in place and how they will be monitored. It's important to provide the necessary support to those who have to abide by the rules and to identify the steps that will be taken when they fail to do that. And this creates, if it's done well and properly, foundations for good enforcement. When GRECO did its fourth round evaluation of Latvia back in 2012, we issued 5 recommendations in respect of MPs. Latvia implemented 2 of those recommendations. I would like to acknowledge the efforts that were made to this end, because in particular, the implementation of one of the recommendations, the one on abolition of administrative immunity, involved a constitutional amendment, which is not an easy thing to make happen. But having said that, nevertheless, almost 10 years now after the fourth round evaluation report on Latvia was adopted, and even though GRECO's compliance procedure was formally closed in December last year, 3 key recommendations on MPs remain outstanding. One is about introducing rules on how MPs engage with lobbyists. This was classified as not implemented when the procedure was closed. Another one concerns reviewing and updating the Code of Ethics and completing it with practical measures, including guidance and counseling. This was also found not to be implemented. And one was about developing further the internal mechanisms of the CIMA to ensure the application of the code and the prevention of conflicts of interest, also not implemented. That was about the fourth round, which is about MPs, judges, and prosecutors. And my colleague, Laura Sanz-Livia, is with us today. She's a senior legal advisor in the GRECO Secretariat. And later on, she will expand on the recommendations in respect of Latvia and also give some examples of comparative experiences in other countries. If we look at the 5th evaluation round of GRECO, this is about preventing and addressing corruption in central governments, including top executive functions. I would say that, of course, the executive is the branch of government that exercises authority in and holds responsibility for the governance of the state. But in many countries, executives have actually been the enemy of clean and transparent politics. Cases of high-profile politicians resorting to corrupt practices and abuse of power can be found in quite a few countries across Europe right now. If the executive branch of government has excessive control and influence over the legislature, corruption is likely to increase and to take more insidious forms. Luckily, parliaments can be instrumental themselves in enhancing accountability and reducing executive corruption. GRECO has pointed out that it's essential that top executive officials in central government operate with the utmost integrity, maintain a reputation for impartiality, objectivity, and professionalism, and demonstrate effectiveness in their duties. But to understand what constitutes proper behavior requires clear standards and explanations. In central government, we have this unique combination of public authority and discretionary power, which means there can be plenty of opportunities for incentives to pursue illicit benefits, whether they are large or small. Officials have to learn how to manage any competing loyalties to the state, to the government, the institutions, and their public duties, and all of these can overlap and clash with their own private interests. GRECO addressed 10 recommendations to Latvia regarding corruption prevention in central government, so the 5th round back in 2018. of those, 2 have only been implemented, and that is in relation to the vulnerabilities of advisors rather than top executive officials themselves. Although Latvia launched wide-ranging reforms in response to other recommendations, decisive progress still has to be demonstrated in some areas. And we would like to see, first of all, the adoption of a well-articulated set of standards of conduct for top executive officials, governing conflicts of interest, gifts, and interaction with third parties, including lobbyists, the key topic of today. Secondly, ensuring the timely disclosure and adequate registration of ad hoc conflicts of interest. And thirdly, subjecting the asset declarations of top executive officials to systematic, in-depth, and independent scrutiny in accordance with the law. Latvia has to report back to GRECO on the implementation of all outstanding recommendations by the end of April next year, and we look forward to that. That is what I wanted to say by way of background before I finish these remarks, which have become rather long, and which also have not been only on lobbying, but I hope that that doesn't do any harm. I would like to encourage the authorities to pursue their efforts in this area. We note the very promising update provided by the representative of the Parliamentary Committee just now. This is really encouraging. It's also important to stress from my side that our experience shows that measures to prevent and address corruption require very determined and targeted action. It never happens by itself, unfortunately. But we remain optimistic and we appreciate very much the event today. So thank you for inviting us.
Liels paldies Hanne Junkerei. Many thanks to Hanne Juncher for these encouraging words.
Thank you to Hanne Juncher.
Mēs esam apņēmīgi.
Yes, we can claim that we are very committed. What Hanne just wished to us to work on the lobbying framework on developing the interest representation framework